Hi, everybody. My name is Vinny Cerrito. I'm the chair of the Transportation Committee for Community Board 3 in Manhattan. This is a hybrid meeting. So we have folks here in the room with us here in Community Board 3, and we also have folks joining us online. For you folks online, we have a bunch of agenda items that we'll go over tonight. After each agenda item, we'll have a time for folks to speak here in the room. Our community members will be able to speak. And then if you would like to speak, we ask that you put your hand up and then we'll promote you and allow you to speak here for the meeting. We have, before we just get started, I'm going to have Nancy here, who is our vice chair. She's just going to do a roll call for committee members.
Vincent Cerrito.
Here.
Nancy Comp here. Time and dates. Lee Berman. Absent. Ariane Shua. Absent. Sean Garcia. Here. Charlie Goldson. Michelle Cooperson. Present. Gerald Yao. Elena Perez. Here. David Crane.
Great, thanks. We're also the Environment Committee, so this is a very nice day today. So happy that you all here showed up tonight because it is so lovely. Just for agenda items, we have the Independent Budget Office, known as IBO here, that are going to give us a presentation on street plans. We have Families for Street States, that is Safe Streets, joining us as well for a supportive district-wide CB3 regional slow zone. We'll then review the preliminary budget, planning for the term limits, and then we'll also just going to get an update from Susan on the 11 streets bike racks and DOT coordination there. So with that, turn it over to the Owen. I don't know, I appreciate you being here tonight. If you just give a overall, just understand what IBO is in the Independent Budget Office.
Yes, first of all, I want to thank the community board for giving us the opportunity to speak today on the streets plan. My name is John Mendes. I'm joined here by my colleague, Angela Pramick. We are both analysts within the IBO. So for some context, the Independent Budget Office is a nonpartisan city agency that provides data-driven analysis on how New York City raises and spends its money. We do a lot of work on extending the city budget, taxes, major policy issues that New Yorkers care about, and also just providing reliable information for decision making. We do stuff as sort of 3 legally mandated reports every year, where it's a response to the mayor's financial plan, where we do our own analysis of revenues and expenditures. We do year-round reports on budget issues and policy issues that are in the current conversation. We also do testimonies at city council. So whenever there's a city council topic that people are talking about, we'll do our own testimony with our analysis. And part of what we do as well is just presentations and general resources to the community. So we are here today to talk a little bit about the streets plan, but I also want to shout out some of the recent work that we've done related to transportation. We recently released a report looking at City Bike and how City Bike compares to other major bike share programs. We did a report on looking at the MTA capital budget shortfall and how it affects the city budget. And also, I personally wrote a report on looking at why New York City buses are so slow and what the city is doing to increase bus speeds across New York City. With that said, I'm going to pass it along to my colleague Emily, who's going to talk a little bit about the streets plan, and you should be able to see our presentation on the screen.
Right, hi everybody. Apologies, I'm catching my breath a little from running from the train. But I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us. I feel like I recognize some faces, maybe from some other presentations we've done. Like John said, I'm Emily Pramick. I'm the lead analyst for transportation at IBO. And we were asked to come today to speak a little bit about the streets plan, do a brief overview, answer questions. We also have a little bit of IBO research that gets into sort of what's going on at DOT and why some of the targets might not be hit. So we'll present that as well. Thank you. So, just to start with the basics, what is the streets plan? It is the city's comprehensive transportation master plan, and this all came about in 2019 with local law 195. This was really a mandate from the city council to DOT to devise and implement these 5-year plans. So today we are in 2026, it's the last year of the very first plan. There is another plan coming up in 2027 that is actually due to council, I believe, for December 1st. So DOT has said as recently as last week, a testimony that they are working on that. I'll maybe talk a little bit more about what that looks like later. The council, I just want to say, had 2 goals with establishing the streets plan. They wanted to make the city's transportation planning more comprehensive across all the different ways that we move around the city. So whether you're walking, you're biking, you're riding the bus, this was meant to all be in one plan. And one sort of integrated way of planning transportation investments. The second goal that the council had was to advance alternative transportation. So the way you see this, you can skip this slide for a moment. The way that you see this is actually in the benchmarks that they set for the agency. So there are quantitative benchmarks in the local law for bus lanes, bike lanes, many different ways that we move in a sort of non-driving capacity through the city. And so you can see this focus on those alternative modes right in the legislation. And then last but not least, I just want to mention this law was a really big deal for DOT at the time. I don't know if folks in the committee or paying attention or remember this moment, but DOT, when they testified about the law, initially said that they would need several $1 billion, and I quote Polly Grunberg at the time, and a significantly reconfigured agency to do this. Arguably, they did not have those things, and so it's definitely a theme that you hear from the agency in their testimony and their plans that they've updated each year. Okay, so you can, what's this slide? Thank you. So let's talk about just a little bit about the benchmarks that are in the law. These are, again, those council mandated quantitative targets for the agency to hit in their investments each year. There are a number that are like easy to add up. There are numbers of miles, there's counts of bus stops upgraded, there's things like intersections or square feet. But then there's also a couple of kind of qualitative benchmarks in the law. These include things like planning for loading zones or truck routes. I think there was a question sent to us for the committee about that. That is a qualitative benchmark in the law. It is not something that DOT is measuring or the council is measuring, but it is something they're required to think about and plan for. So that is right in local law 195. Let's see. So you see, this is actually drawn straight from DOT's 2021 streets plan. So this is their initial plan for the 5 years. You can see that there are annual benchmarks for that first year that they present. They present an average for each of the subsequent, for each of the 5 years. All of that adds up to a total that is in the law. So, for example, protected bus lanes, over the 5 years, DOT is required to hit 150 miles of those bus lanes. So DOT has just chosen to break it out and kind of make a little average here. And then you'll notice one more thing, which is that DOT also cites their capacity, and they see that as something separate and different and distinct from those targets, and they are emphasizing it right away in this 2021 report. It seemed pretty rosy at the time. They actually were looking like they could do the 2022 targets, but you'll notice even on the bus stop upgrades that there's a little asterisk there. So they say, you know, our benchmark is 500 bus stops. We think we can do 500, but little note, that's going to depend on our contracting for this this upgrade structure. So right away, DOT was putting a question mark around their ability to implement these targets. And I will say, just one more thing on this, which is that many of these targets are quite ambitious. One of the things that John and I found in our research that we did on bus lanes is that that 150 miles of bus lanes that DOT was meant to do in 5 years, that was actually asking them to double the total amount of protected bus lanes in the city. So what they had done over the past 50 years, in 2019, they were being asked to do again in 5 years by the council. So pretty tall. Alright. So how is the city, how is DOT doing so far? We've actually pulled a little bit of data for you guys to give you an update. This is the latest as of last week. So DOT did provide their totals through 2025. There, 1 year to go, so there's also, total for the 5 years. What you see on the screen in orange is the total that DOT has completed in those first 4 years of the streets plan. What you see in gray is the 5-year goal that the legislation requires. So, the different rows of this chart are the different quantitative benchmarks, roughly in order from like best to worst. We put pedestrian space at the bottom because it's like on a totally different scale from the rest of them, but for the ones at the top, it's kind of in order of their progress. So DOT is doing okay on some goals. They've actually like really knocked redesigning intersections way up or very, very early. Their pedestrian signals and transit signal priority goals are doing okay. But where they're really, let's just say, not meeting their targets and not really on track are in those protected lane miles and bus stop upgrades. So we can talk a little bit about what we're seeing in those goals. The bus stop upgrades, I will say, if you remember that little asterisk from the previous slide, that's where they ran into some problems. So there was a requirement for these upgrades to not just have seating and shelters, but also to have a real-time passenger information sign at them. And that latter piece they have had issues procuring, and then even as recently as last week has said they're kind of going back to the drawing board when it comes to their procurement and their equipment. So I mean, not on track for that one. Do folks have questions about this data before we move on? I just want to make sure.
So can you repeat the things that they're hitting the mark with?
Yes, so they are hitting the mark on redesigning intersections the most. That involves a number of different treatments. So it can be like a safety upgrade, like a curb extension, or it could be a pedestrian ramp. They actually could have a menu of options to hit that. So they have been really doing well on that, as you can see. Accessible pedestrian signals, they've also met that goal a little bit early. Those are those audible signals that you hear, if you press, if you need an announcement or a tone to know that you have a light, it's safe to walk there, doing quite well. Yes.
When you look at the intersections, do you look at funding at all?
I have not, I actually don't know what that means.
Oh, that's
I
why,
have not looked at
that's
that.
when you have little lakes,
Like if you can.
or big lakes, yeah, because,
Yeah.
this committee actually years ago did an audit, funding audit. And what's happening now is the way the city, paves new streets and everything, they pave them not intentionally too prompt. And you get snow, like the snow, all the slush and everything goes in. We have some like on Grand and Essex that have actual lakes, and just wondering if anyone pays attention to that.
Well, I certainly experienced that in my daily life. I will say this under the streets plan, that's not part of the treatments that are listed. We actually, I think, put either in this, I think it's in the previous slide, we did put a link to the actual city code that lists the different things that count under their intersection work. So if you want to see more about that, yeah, but yeah, I don't.
My fear is that it doesn't count for anything. And Kate, I don't know if you know anything about it. I don't think anyone pays any attention to it except the people trying to get through it. And in the last snowstorm, it was particularly in the papers covered, particularly people who are disabled, couldn't get through. But we do get complaints a lot. And again, I think nobody pays attention, it's not part of the checklist for anything.
Maybe we can see if permeable pavement is.
Talk into the mic, turn the light on, device and so we can't hear.
I was saying maybe we could just see if permeable pavement is part of the list, because if that's an improvement, maybe it's something we can push, but we'll have to look back at the.
Yeah, so I don't think that would not be.
I will say the sort of, there's two things here. One of them is the sort of infrastructure issue where the DOT should be, I guess, making sure that the sign street so that doesn't happen. I don't.
Okay, for you, okay.
I don't believe that's part of the law as it stands, but the other thing I believe if you submit if you're one to complain, at least the city will come out.
Can I tell you what a 311 complaint does?
That's the sort of theory.
So you get the
Theory.
number, I tell people, call 311, get a service complaint number, give it to me, and we'll follow up. 311 does nothing, the community board tries, but they're totally unsuccessful. So Kate, do you have
Yeah.
anything to add from DOT?
Sure. Hi, HR New York City DOT. So ponding, we typically will receive complaints from the public. And we'll go out and we'll inspect the roadway to see if there's an issue either with the. Sometimes the ponding could be caused by a defective catch basin that's not working, insufficient catch basin. So a lot of the times we'll coordinate with DEP as well to go out and inspect. We'll also look at the pitch of the road, how water is draining, the condition of the roadway, and if there's an opportunity, if we think that we're able to do like an interim patch on the road to address it, we will try to do that when they're brought to our attention. In some cases, it may require a full resurfacing. Or, there are instances where the pedestrian ramp plays a role in the ponding condition. So a lot of the times pedestrian ramps, if they're missing or broken, require capital reconstruction because it has to do with moving the curb and sometimes the utilities underneath it are impacted. So those more complex ponding conditions can take a lot longer to solve.
So these are almost always when there are no catch basins, which is many intersections, and it's even with brand new repaved roads. So they shouldn't need to be patched like the ones up here. I mean, it's true, it's the way it is, it's just, and I clearly no one is paying attention to.
You can
I
send
have a
me
question.
locations.
The street plan,
Yeah,
is
sure.
that right? So just jumping back, so who set the benchmarks? Was it the council who set the benchmarks? That the DOT, it sounds like from early on was giving excuses on.
Yeah, so these quantitative benchmarks are set in the law, so that is a.
But who so the law that the council set, who gave the council these numbers? Did they just pull it out of thin air? Like 150 miles, did it come from nowhere? Was it just Edonis Rodriguez when he was the chair? Like, this sounds like a good number, then he became commissioner and was like, oh, that number doesn't make sense anymore, like, what happened?
Even realize something.
Yeah.
That's a
That is
very
honest.
good question.
Yeah,
That's a really good question. I have not looked into the legislative history of that. If your question, I was gonna take that back. I am curious if our DOT rep can speak to that, but if as far as I can tell, just from the writing of the law, like some of these benchmarks were a real point of contention within kind of the conversation with DOT at the time, and like we said, the bus lane miles are asking to double something in 5 years that they have to get 5 decades to do. So it does seem like these were really stretch goals set by the council. They were looking to really put like pedal to the metal and getting, especially these alternative transportation investments moving.
No. I'm sorry.
So why don't we move along just to the next, we just have a couple more
Sure.
slides for you.
Actually, I'm sorry, I just have just one or two questions. So, just for like, when it says like redesign intersections, does that mean actually implementation? Like that they redesigned it and when they actually
They, like,
made the change?
Do the thing, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
alright, great. And then just kind of like, Sean kind of like picked off like that same conversation about like whether or not protect bike lanes, protecting bus lanes, which again, like when council made this, do they know they have to support it then in like reality when, and that, so I just, how does that connection work of you're putting, I mean, saying, well, DOT do this, but then they need to come to us and then we have to approve and do all that. How
Yeah,
does that work feasibility of implementation?
I think, yeah.
How do you hold feet to the fire and actually do this where sometimes it's actually politically really difficult to do some of these things?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're hitting on kind of exactly the issue that has come up year after year. When DOT is asked to basically come before the council every time they provide an update, show they're not making progress. Council will say, why aren't you making progress? And we sort of have the same conversation every year. Some of that, actually, if you do move to the next slide, we actually get into some of this point, so that might be helpful that I have in front of us. One of the major, so if you ask UT whether they're not meeting street plan goals, you listen to testimony and you read the annual updates that they provide. There are a number of reasons cited. Some of it is that lack of capacity. We don't have the people, we don't have the funding, we don't have the facilities that we need. There has also been more recently an argument from DOT that they are facing too much opposition from even members of the council or members of the community on those projects that if they were implemented would count for streets plan goals. So they are actually making the argument that we just outlined, which is that we can't do these things if we don't have sufficient support for even the projects that are in.
Like not even funding, but also political support.
Literally,
Like
yeah.
Fordham Road is an example where they were trying to get this busway and then the political support wasn't there to make it happen.
That's exactly, and honestly, if you listen to not this past year's hearing, but the one from about a year ago, that's exactly the argument that he is making, and he's for the road as an example. A couple other things have come up that have gotten in the way, so, DOT had mentioned, this was a few years ago, we mentioned a lot of logistics, supply chain issues. As well as staffing, retention, and a hiring freeze, so there was a hiring freeze for the city. In the first years after COVID, there has been some restrictions on backfilling roles, so for every 2 employees who leave, you could hire 1. That's been the case at DOT, and we actually did a little bit of research into that in our capacity as IDO. We have access to administrative staffing data, and so we can show you guys a couple of results from John's and my paper from a year ago on that. Gary, just going. So DOT has made this claim that, we don't have the people, we've had trouble getting certain roles. We took a look at first their overall staffing from when the streets plan was passed in late 2019 to when this paper was released, which is the very beginning of 2025. Overall, we found DOT's full-time active headcount was relatively flat. It grew by just 4% over that time period. They actually dipped a little in the middle while they had that hiring freeze. It is really a far cry from that transformative personnel investment that they were asking for in 2019. And because our paper was focused on bus speeds, we were really interested in folks kind of behind the scenes on those bus lane projects. So if you scroll to the next slide, you can see we took a look at specific bus related work units at DOT. So these are people in kind of the transit planning roles, the people who work with bus lane consultants, people who work on kind of reviewing engineering plans for these protected bus lanes. All of them saw a decline in their headcount over this time, and it was really quite significant, especially for the bus lane planners and for that design and construction line, which is the people who are reviewing and kind of signing off on engineering plans for these lanes. So, this isn't a full picture of everyone who works on buses at DOT, but for us, this really drove home the point that, we were missing capacity in that pipeline of people. It stands to reason that you're not going to be making the progress that you want to see. And it's certainly, again, really far away from that, completely staffed up, reconfigured agency that the department is asking for back in 2019. So that's what we found on that particular question. I think we can kind of turn to what's next for the streets plan. So this year in the mayor's preliminary budget last month, they have allocated new money to advance those bus lane and bike lane projects. So there is $5 million additional per year in each year of the plan, and 20 headcount. So that's that little 20C in the table is. And all that, this is all public data. We've included a link to the document this comes from in the slide. So if you guys on the committee ever want to look at it or look at a different agency, this is a really helpful budgetary resource. I will say those 20 headcount, we don't know what positions they're gonna fill yet. They're still deciding that. We don't know exactly what projects that 5 million per year is gonna go to. We do know it's about a 40-60 split between staffing costs and kind of the other hard costs of implementing these lanes, so there's money in there for new staff, and it's sort of movement towards resourcing this plan is nice to see. Okay, then the last slide before I turn it back to John. The other thing that keep in mind that's coming up is that new streets plan that is coming by December 1st. DOT has said they are actively working on it as last week. This is an even more ambitious set of goals for DOT. So if you look at the legislation, they outlined those quantitative benchmarks for the first 5 years, and then they have these benchmarks that you see on the screen for the next 5. So where DOT was in the first plan required to build 250 miles of protected bike lanes, in the second plan, they are now required to complete a connected bicycle network. So finishing the job in the next 5 years, we'll see what happens. They are also required to install protected bus lanes on all bus routes where such is to be installed. So this is really kind of upping the ante in terms of ambition. These are not quantitative goals though, so it was some measurement. I'm very curious to see what the agency puts out in their plan and what they're suggesting as targets. But certainly the ambition is there and the ask is even greater from the council. And if you guys ever want to look at the law itself, we've included a link here. So it's very short, it's only like 3 pages, so it's a quick read, but sometimes parsing an exact language will give you an idea of where the council's thinking and where DOT might, hit some barriers. So what does this mean for your community board? We actually took a look at the recent investments under the streets plan in your community, and so I'm going to turn it over to John to talk.
Yes, thank you. So as you can see in the presentation, right now you are looking at a map. So the map contains several data sets, but mostly these are things that are related to the New York City Streets Plan. So the first few colors that you see in greens, green, light blue, and purple, those are different types of bike lanes that DOT has built since 2022. I will make the note, not necessarily all of these count towards the streets plan. The streets plan is very specific in the sense that they have to be protected bike lanes. But this is just a limitation that we have with the data. But they have been doing investments in bike lanes. You can also see here in bus stop red, you can see all of the different bus lanes that the Department of Transportation has built and implemented since the streets plan was passed. On the far right, that's Avenue D. You also have Allen Street and also Pike Street, I believe. And then we also included here another part from the street plan, which is the pedestrian plazas and some of the investments that DOT has done to build some of them. And then also here included are New York City open streets, which are important to a lot of people as well. So from the conversation that we've been having so far, DOT has had capacity to build some of the investments that they are outlining. They've been required to do by the streets plan. However, they have been struggling to meet some of those major mandates for individual items.
Is there, I don't wanna interrupt you, is there another one of just like the just redesigned intersections?
That we do not. I don't think that's
So
true.
that is one of the limitations that we have in data. So we don't have access to that. DOT might have access to those specific intersections specifically within Community Board 3, but we don't have it.
Okay, all right, yeah, just that from like a equity standpoint, across Manhattan.
Yeah.
Just not really getting what other community boards are, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question, and I will say, we didn't quite get into this in the beginning, but IBM does take research requests, so if you have a question like that, feel free to reach out to us. We can't always promise we can do every request for a tiny agency, but we do love to get requests from community boards. We have done some research like that, but that's sort of the reach out.
catch up on that.
Cool,
From-
yeah,
We're always very interested in equity and just getting our fair share.
absolutely.
We're actually, it was, looking at possibly doing some kind of equity report, for this board, and if there's something that you could recommend as, in transportation or anything that IBO's been working on, we really appreciate it, because we know it's a huge issue here, but we don't have the expertise to really frame it for a request for a report. We have money.
I can talk a little bit about that. I worked on a report that was released in February of last year that looked at bus speeds specifically. So we were looking at basically all of the things that we talked about in the streets plan, just related to buses, but more specifically on bus speeds and how different neighborhoods across the city have significantly slower buses. This has a sort of domino effect where people who rely on buses tend to be lower income, and that means that if they miss a bus, they can't get a couple of their jobs. So those sort of questions are something that we do have the capacity to look at, and we'll be happy to take a request to look at anything and everything that you guys are interested in. Of course, we have data limitations, but we try to do our best to respond to all the questions. So if there's anything that you are interested as a community board, please feel free to reach out and we'll do our
We
best.
maybe have a conversation this week, the three of us,
Of course.
to do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna still go by the buses, it's like. You could say they're slower or they're faster, but if you wait 20 minutes for a bus. It doesn't matter if they're 2 minutes or 3 minutes slower or faster.
That's fair.
So what they did here is they, in part of the community, they actually took away bus stops. The community did not want taken away because they wanted to shave off time. And with the time they shaved off was less than 3 minutes. But meanwhile, you still wait 20 minutes for those same buses.
Which is definitely something that if you're interested in further research, you can take that class in and consider it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I don't take the buses too often, but I'm curious to know. Are there buses, I don't know what exactly where these are plotted out at. But are there buses that, let's just say, like the whole lane on 495? You know, where cars can go a lot faster, I'm speaking in terms of buses. Those that would not have to stop as frequently with lesser stops. Perhaps there is a lane that can be created for those buses to continue to move, which would expedite points of destination drop-offs. Rather than those that are, more frequent. Is that something that you have in place or?
So I mean, there are, but you will see around the city painted bus lanes, you'll see the kind of like red lane in the street, and those are meant to serve some of that function you just mentioned. So if you see a bus lane in and in any street, that is meant to be for the bus only, it's meant to kind of protect that right of way, and cars who are driving in that lane are meant to kind of turn out of the way or avoid the lane altogether. I leave it to DOT to talk about like the efficacy they're seeing of that and the different plans they have for that, but there is that kind of concept out there, and that's part of what the streets plan is trying to advance, is even protecting those lanes further. So not only do you paint them on the street with the red paint, but you put some kind of like physical infrastructure to prevent cars from moving into it, like a concrete barrier or some kind of raised element, or you're enforcing it with cameras, which is the other way that DOT and with partnership with the MTA protect those bus lanes from cars moving in there. So kind of like how HOV lane works just for certain vehicles, those are meant to be just for buses.
And if you don't mind me asking,
Oh, that's-
I don't take bus.
No, that's good.
I'm just trying to,
I just wanted to be mindful of time, because we're already
I
7:15,
Yeah.
go on time.
Are
You should be sitting up here.
Are those in isolated areas as in trials that are being implemented right now to see how efficient they are? Or are they just in designated areas because they're high traffic areas? I'm just trying to understand
Oh,
like
I
the
see,
difference
yeah.
and how fluid the transport, okay?
I was gonna say that's definitely more of the
Yeah, no, I'm gonna talk to you because I want to know that. So New York City DOT, we have bus lanes citywide. as permanent infrastructure. There have been instances where we've installed them. And seen that, you know, we needed to go back and redo it because ours was blocking it, and this was before we had camera enforcement on buses. But like, for example, the 14th Street bus and 14th Street busway, so between 3rd Avenue and 9th Avenue on 14th Street, you can only buses and trucks making deliveries are able to use that route. If you're a regular driver in your personal vehicle, you have to make the first turn off of 14th Street. So that's a permanent project that was installed a few years ago with pretty good success of increasing bus speeds in the area. But we're looking constantly with the MTA as well to see where else we can implement this. We have the Second Avenue in CD3 in the last few years. We did Pike Street and part of Second Avenue, and our continuing network in Manhattan and citywide.
One more question. So my question has to do with the equitable distribution of resources, and I wondered, because you all had a map of all the work that's happening in Before District 3. Do you have maps like that with all the different districts?
Yeah, so we have access to data that's publicly available online. We do have the capacity to build our own maps. And so if you're interested in seeing how this sort of plays out citywide, you can reach out to us and I'm happy to share it.
Because I guess it makes me just wonder, how does this compare to what's happening in other districts, and how do they make decisions about how they're going to allocate the resources?
Yeah, and I will add, there is also, the streets plan is a bigger document than just the benchmarks that we've been focusing on, and some of what DOT has done in those plans is outline how they plan for the various investments. So they do work with, DOT here, but they do work with what are called priority investment areas across the city. They have some maps in some of those street plan updates that will show you kind of where exactly those are. Those are meant to be kind of an equity focus to investments. So not just looking at, you know, what's most cost effective, but where DOT has invested in the past, and where it's maybe time for some, to be fair, some new investment. Where there have been areas in the past that have been underinvested, trying to make up ground. So would definitely suggest looking at those, and if you'd like, you can absolutely forward those to you, if you want, you know, where to go. So I know you guys are way over time. I will just say, we've included quite a few other resources in this document. There were some questions sent to us from the committee about how things like Vision Zero and Sammy's Law are reflected in the plan. So I would say, feel free to have a look at those. If you have questions, please reach out to us directly, happy to answer them. The short answer on that is it's all part of Vision Zero, and you can get a Vision Zero view, the website, to get the latest data on kind of where those investments are happening. But yeah, I think the last thing I want to say is, you know, feel free to reach out to us with questions. We have reports coming up on the city budget. We actually are testifying tomorrow in front of Council of Finance on the new budget for the city. We will have a report out March 25th on the preliminary plan, so encourage you to read that. And we also encourage you to sign up for our newsletter, which is on the very last slide. You can scan the QR code and you'll get all the latest from IDEA. But thank you all so much. And if you have any other questions about the street plan or our work, you'd be happy to take those.
That's great, thank you. And there's a link to this presentation on our website too as well.
Yes,
So,
perfect.
community members and folks from us online, you can go there. Excellent. Any last
I
questions?
think the problem, so people are having trouble clicking on the link to get in. I think it's a city website problem.
Yeah. All right. Well, okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Really appreciate you coming in. This is great stuff. And
Yeah.
I think we'll be in contact, because I
Yes,
think
please
it's
do.
just something that's nice to know that we've got it through.
No, and if, you know, I'll be in touch with you if you can find a time, this three of us can talk about the recording.
That'd be great. We'd be happy to do that. Thank you so much.
Great. Okay, so we're gonna go to Families for Safe Streets, and I believe we have Alexis online. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. So Alexis, we'll make you a, oh, we're all ready to go. If you have your screen to share, that'd be great.
Nancy can do it. She's already.
Alexis, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, hi. And Kevin is also here.
Oh, great. Just 1 minute, we'll promote him in.
So this is gonna be a sound, so. This is.
Great, and at this point, you should be able to share your own screen if you have your presentation up.
Is Kevin able to do that too?
He should be, yes.
Great.
Give me one moment. I'm just pulling it up right now.
And thanks for coming. I'm just gonna give a quick little thing for the committee here. So we asked Safe Streets to come because they're an organization that is, they'll talk about who they are, but we as a committee called DOT came to us late last year for the regional slow zone in FiI, which hit like 2 or 3 blocks at CB3. At that meeting, we approved that and the full board agreed to it. And we also asked DOT to look at expanding the regional slow zone up to Houston Street. Because it was kind of new, they were just getting to community boards, looking at Houston Street as being kind of like a boulevard that kind of divides the district between the smaller streets to the south and then the avenues streets to the north. But as the time has chugged on here, we've also found out that actually a good part of Avenue A through D from Houston up to 14th Street is actually already more or less not reaching the slow zone, but it has 20 mile per hour speed limits. Apparently that we're not really sure if it's signed appropriately or not. But then there's a segment of CD3 between the Bowery and First Avenue that is that we just don't have any say on, or we haven't actually made a commitment that we support Sammy's law implementation of 20 mile per hours on streets, 50 mile per hours at schools. And so this is kind of like to get an overall presentation of for the law again for us, and then to look at another additional resolution to expand it to just include all of community board in this. I'll also say that community boards 2, 4, and 5 have all listened to it at their committees. And they've all approved it at community levels to have their community districts included in Sammy's law. But the full board has not all approved it all. Not sure if they just haven't actually seen it or not, but just so you know that this is kind of going around, and I'm not sure if folks from Safe Families has any more information just to kind of talk about what's going on and the rest of them have. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Great. Kevin, you're muted, but thank you so much for having us this evening. Thank you for that introduction to Sammy's law and the current state of the streets on CB3. Really quickly, I'm just going to share a little bit about what Families for Safe Streets is. Kevin, if you can go to the next slide. So it sounds like a lot of you are familiar with our organization already, but Families for Safe Streets is an organization that was founded to confront the preventable epidemic of traffic violence. We have 2 ways of doing that. We provide support for people who have been affected by traffic violence, and we do advocacy like this to try and make sure that doesn't happen to anyone else ever again. We have over 700 members in the New York City area, and we provide peer support and logistical assistance, and I help people use their voice to talk about often the worst day of their life, but to hopefully prevent that from happening to anyone else. Do you want to go to the next slide, Kevin?
Sure.
So we're here to talk about Sammy's law because traffic violence in New York is just a really big problem. In 2025, 206 people were killed in traffic crashes. That's 1 person every 42 hours. And of those 206 deaths, 112 were pedestrians, 73 were motorists, and 21 were bike riders. It's the second leading cause of injury related to hospitalizations. And specifically in Manhattan Community Board 3, there were over 1,100 total crashes, 610 injuries, 3 deaths, which you all have likely heard about. Kevin Krushenk was a cyclist. May Kwok was a pedestrian, and there is one other unnamed pedestrian who was killed in Manhattan CB3 in 2025. So it is right here in our backyard. This is the crash mapper. So that the red dots are fatalities, but all of those dots are crashes in the district. As you can see, this is not, in one specific area of the district. It is everywhere. It is all over. This is a problem for the whole district, and it's a problem for the whole city. If you look at this data for every other community board, it's just as bad everywhere else too. It's really unfortunate. And the thing is, we know that speed kills. It's just basic physics, that something heavy going fast is gonna have a lot more force when it stops. Higher vehicle speeds significantly increase the likelihood of death. Higher speeds make it a lot harder for the driver to see what's around them. And higher speeds make reaction time and braking distance a lot longer, which means that the pedestrians on the road are a lot less safe. And just another example, or another way to show you how speeding is so very dangerous, is just the difference between getting hit at, say, 23 miles per hour versus 32 miles per hour. At 23 miles per hour, you have 10% of people will die. At 32 miles per hour, 25% of people will die. These small changes to the street speed seem small, especially to the driver, but they make a big difference when it comes to fatalities and injuries when you're on the ground.
And oh, sorry, go ahead, Alexa. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so Sammy's Law was a piece of state legislation that we passed in 2024 that gives New York City the ability to set their own speed limits. There is no reason that a state senator from Cayuga is making decisions about the speed limit on Canal Street. And it is really widely approved by New York City residents.
And once Sammy's Law was passed through the state legislature, it kicked back to New York to implement. So we were given permission to implement those 20-mile-per-hour speed limits throughout New York City. Unfortunately, Mayor Adams did not implement Sammy's Law that broadly once he was given the authority to do so. It was implemented on less than 1.5% of all city streets. All of Manhattan south of Canal, which is all of Manhattan CB1, and also the portion of Manhattan CB3 that is one of the slow zones that you all have in your district, is the largest area citywide to get those Sammy's Law initiated slow zones. In February of 2025, Brooklyn Community Board 1 asked to be another slow zone. There had been a promise from the DOT that there'd be slow zones in other districts and other boroughs. And there was not much follow through. And after CB1 asked for it, they announced 4 more small, tiny slow zones, not Brooklyn CB1, but Dumbo in Brooklyn, Broad Channel in Queens, St. George and Staten Island, and City Island in the Bronx. And obviously these slow zones are welcome in those neighborhoods, but those are very small in terms of area. This past year, well, I guess rewinding a little bit, in September of 2024, actually, Manhattan CB3 beat Brooklyn CB1 to the punch and asked for the slow zone to be expanded from north from Canal to East Houston Street. Brooklyn CB1, which is my community board, followed, asking to be a full slow zone under the authority of the mayor. And then in February of this year, Queens Community Board 2 passed a similar resolution. Manhattan Community Board 4 also passed a full board resolution. And then in February, Manhattan CB2, CB5, CB6, Brooklyn CB6, and Queens CB6 unanimously passed resolutions through their transportation committees. So basically the ask is just for Manhattan Community Board 3 to look at this and pass a resolution asking for this to be district-wide. Sammy's Law applies on basically all streets except roads with 3 or more motor vehicle travel lanes outside of Manhattan. It does not apply to state roads. In Manhattan CB3, interestingly enough, you guys are kind of the picture of both Sammy's Law and no Sammy's Law. There's already 2 slow zones in the neighborhood, which I have a little map here. But there's one slow zone south of Canal, which was under Sammy's Law, and then another one in the East Village. You all had asked for that slow zone to be expanded north, but not for the entirety of the district. So there's still a portion of the district where there is no slow zone and the board has not asked for a slow zone, which I can get to that in one moment. But just really quickly, for information, slow zones would not be applicable on the FDR Drive, on the Williamsburg Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, or the Brooklyn Bridge. So this is just a quick map of the neighborhood. That area south of Canal in green, and the East Village up there has the 20-mile-per-hour slow zones. The rest of it has the 25-mile-per-hour. The kind of middle half of it there, coming off the Williamsburg Bridge, that is the area that you all have asked to be an expanded slow zone. And then that area kind of up near kind of the Ukrainian villages is where no slow zone has been requested. So this is just in that area where CB3 has not yet asked for a slow zone. Last year, there were 250 crashes, which is 21% of the district's total, 143 injuries, which is 23% of the district's total. That's just really quickly on a map right there. That part of it there. So I had sent along a longer resolution, and I'm sorry, I didn't get to introduce myself. My name is Kevin. I live in Greenpoint. I do a lot of volunteering for street safety work like this around the city, and I had kind of worked to do this in my own community board, seeing how important boards are in this process. And right now there are about a dozen boards citywide that are actively discussing Sammy's Law resolutions, asking the city to take the action that it is able to. The mayor has the power and ability to do this, to make our streets as safe as they can be. There's real and immediate consequences when you lower these speed limits. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. I'd sent along a longer resolution. This was just some very basic language. But yeah, that's kind of the whole situation. Alexis, do you have anything else? I know Alexis had to jump at 7:30, so she might have left. Happy to answer any questions that anybody has. If folks have questions, or I can pop back to a map, whatever folks would like.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Actually, why don't we just keep this map that you have on there right now?
Great.
Appreciate it. And so for folks that are joining us online, if you'd like to speak and have a question, just put your hand up and we can allow you to do so. But I'll ask right now for the community members if you have any questions to ask. Okay, we have no one in the room that signed up to speak, so we'll move on. If anybody will put their hand up. Rachel, I'm gonna allow you to speak.
Hi, thanks for calling on me. I just wanted to say that I'm here in full support of the NYC Streets Plan and bringing Sammy's Law to the Lower East Side. You guys have heard me in many of these meetings before make the case for this, but I just want to stress again how important it is to have lower speeds. It allows for an increased reaction time for both drivers and pedestrians. It reduces the severity of pedestrian injuries, and lower speed limits and safer streets are a matter of public health. So I would just strongly encourage the committee to implement all of these common sense measures to help keep us safe. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Rachel. Okay, hey Daniel, we'll allow you to speak just 1 sec. You're free to go.
Hi, I'm Daniel Tanow. I'm on the community board. I also just wanted to speak in favor of expanding a slow speed zone, Sammy's Law, to the whole district. I live in the part that's currently not covered, and I see speeding daily, very dangerous along Delancey Street, right against the curb. And I hope that we can pass this.
Great, thanks, Sam. And Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I think, our board has been historically in favor of Sammy's Law. We supported of a resolution, when the legislation was trying to get passed. You know, as a parent in the neighborhood, you know, it is very scary to, you know, we were just talking about this beforehand. My daughter is a fifth grader. We're, you know, debating when she's gonna start walking to school alone. It's very scary thinking about some of these corridors and intersections for her to walk by herself. And I think the point that the speaker made about just like that change from 25 miles per hour to 20 miles per hour is just such a radical difference. Just focus wise, it just makes a lot of sense in residential areas that cars are just going slower. And I also think, I mean, this is not part of this, but we see on Third Avenue that 15 mile per hour timer thing that you have. It's called the green wave or whatever it is. It's basically the concept that cars drive at 15 miles per hour and they basically can catch all the lights, right? Is the core concept of it?
I think that's correct. I'm actually not familiar.
Yeah. So I mean, that along with Sammy's law would not only make it safer for people to walk and bike and be in the street, but it would also make it easier for drivers. I mean, it would make it so drivers are feeling, you know, less forced to speed and to try to catch a light. So I think this is like a common sense thing, you know, something that you know, we can see like the proof in it working. And hopefully we can get these additional measures, right? So we can get the slow zone, and we can get the 20 miles per hour in the district, but additionally we can get some of this, you know, light timing stuff and, you know, the SIPs that we got passed on Avenue B, stuff like that, is really gonna help the community.
That's great, thanks, Sean. And then, yeah, next agenda item, when we talk about the budget, request for next fiscal year, we have in that for, is red light cameras and speed cameras and all those as well, so, I believe it's- anybody else? Okay, so hi, we have a 917 number, we'll allow you to speak. And if you could just introduce yourself.
Hi. It's Laura Sewell. I'm speaking on behalf of the East Village Community Coalition. Sorry, I wasn't able to join online and I'm not very good at this phone calling in thing. But I just wanted to comment that, you know, we have, there are 20 mile per hour markings on Avenue B on the street. And I think it's very confusing. Drivers think, oh, maybe it's a school zone marking, or I don't think people understand that there are already slow zones in this neighborhood. Drivers certainly don't respond and hit 20 miles an hour when they get here. So I think consistency across the board in a neighborhood would be much easier on both drivers and pedestrians and cyclists. And I also think that the signage is needed, like a signage where there are traffic signs with a speed limit is going to be necessary for people to understand what's going on. They're just not looking at that painted markings on the road and realizing that that's for them at all times of the day. So that's it. Thank you very much for hearing these things, and I hope you'll support slow zones.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate those comments, because I think that is really why we kind of go back here too, as well as when we first looked at this late last year, it was kind of like its infancy of implementation, and we were looking at how to implement it with like a boulevard that could be, that people understand where the speed limit is and how it changes. And now that the other community boards as well in Manhattan have, looking at this 14th Street makes a lot of sense, especially with CD. I'm gonna say it wrong if I did, with CD5, I think was the one where the full board approved it. But don't quote me. But 14th Street sounds really good here. And I also thought it was really interesting because when we're looking at this, I hadn't even realized that the East Village wasn't in fact, a 20 mile per hour speed limit. We found out later that it was. So I agree with you, signage consistency is key here. So with that, we do have a draft resolution here. But I think we probably want to just add in and tweak just a little bit as we go through it. So I'll go ahead and read it, where I think it initially tweaked was just kind of some of the things that we talked about.
Can we share screen with them?
Yes. Kevin, we might, thank you.
The other thing I'll just note, sorry, just so that you all are aware, one thing that other boards have been discussing, which I did not include in the sample language that I sent along, but obviously I said earlier, so Manhattan Ford passed this in full. Manhattan 2 and 5 passed it unanimously through their committees. And there's discussions about bringing it to 6, 7, 8, and 9 in Manhattan, the other boards that are currently discussing it. There are some boards that have included an ask beyond just the district, but to also call for it citywide. You know, reason being that I and probably a few folks in the room there are some of the few people that know when you're moving from one community board into another, but most people do not. So there are some boards that have put the ask as well for a citywide enactment or a borough-wide enactment of Sammy's Law of these slow zones. And you know, of course, totally up to all of you, but I did not include it there because but I just wanted to give you the context that there are other boards that have been discussing it, have included that in their final resolutions.
Thanks, Kevin. I think I know what Susan's gonna say here, but I'll let her.
Probably.
Statement.
Yeah, so the Manhattan boards can bring it to the borough board and ask the borough board to pass it, which would then encompass the borough. But I think it has a lot of weight, and then it also has the borough president behind it.
Yeah, maybe that's something that we could do right too.
I don't know, is that what you thought I was gonna say?
No,
What did you think I was gonna
I was
say?
what you were gonna say is that we have a policy that we don't comment on other.
Well, that is true, but the real way to do it is to have all these boards, just bring it to the borough board. You don't need to vote on it. You can have everybody voting on it together.
Yeah, I like that too, because I had at one point, with the congestion toll zone and all that whole thing of like, is that an easier way to do it? But then why should we limit Upper Manhattan if they still want to do this too as well so I kind of like that even better, just bringing it to the borough.
I mean, that's common.
Yeah.
It's, how do you do it?
I like that. Okay. Right, so I'm just gonna read this out loud. The motion is support to lower speed limits of Manhattan Community Board 3 pursuant to Sammy's Law. Whereas Manhattan Community District 3, there have been 21 traffic fatalities and 3,448 injuries over the last 5 years. It's an amazing number, demonstrating that traffic violence remains a serious and ongoing threat to the safety of district residents. And whereas New York City's Vision Zero initiative holds that a level of traffic fatality is inevitable or acceptable, and that traffic deaths can be prevented through proactive, systematic measures that treat traffic safety as a public health issue. Yet traffic violence continues to harm our community, limiting the ability of seniors, children, and residents to move through the neighborhood freely and safely. And whereas research and traffic safety data consistently demonstrate that reducing vehicle speed significantly lowers the risk of serious injury and death and crashes, the difference between a pedestrian being struck at 20 miles per hour versus 30 is the difference between survival and a fatal outcome in the majority of cases. And whereas in 2024, the New York State Legislature enacted amendments to BTO plus numbers known as Sammy's Law, specifically granting New York City the authority to lower speed limits on those city streets to 20 miles per hour, and on streets adjacent to schools to 15 miles per hour, until the state legislature created expressly to save lives. And whereas despite this clear legislative authorization and urgent need for citywide action, the DOT has thus far lowered speed limits on only a small number of streets, representing approximately 1.5% of all city streets, leaving the vast majority of New York City neighborhoods, including Manhattan, CD3, without the full protection Samuel Law was designed to provide. So before I get to the therefore be resolved, just said that, do we want to include awares to say that we've supported the FIDI regional slow zone, and then also that we said we wanted to put that in.
We had a lot of discussion about it, so we should probably include it.
So why don't we just say whereas Community District 3 full board has approved the portion of the Lower Manhattan regional slow zone. It's the portion of Lower Manhattan Regional Slow Zone that is located within CB3. And has asked DOT to
Expand.
expand, thank you.
Just check.
Expand the regional slow zone in CB3 to Houston Street. And we should do another whereas. And whereas Community District 3 also has a portion of the district in the East Village, or no, not East Village, as a portion of streets. Sorry, CD3 also has a portion of streets where the speed limit is already 20 miles per hour between Avenue A and to the river, or Avenue A to D, between Houston Street and 14th Street. And honestly, whereas signage indicating speed limits is inconsistent in the community edition CB3. Representing different speed limits. Anything else? If you all want to do linguistics, I'm very happy to change language if it makes it read better.
I think it's beautiful.
Oh, and I keep.
I just wanted to say, because
Very fine.
some parts, if I'm not mistaken, Lanes Boulevard, where the lights are, and because they're constantly reminding you the speed limit, it's posted where the lights are, where the traffic lights are. So I don't know if that is a consideration in terms of keeping the drivers aware that the speed limit has not changed, and if each traffic light can post that little mile per hour signage, I guess that's what the caller was referencing, that would be most supportive as well, just to remind the driver, you know, as they go down each, I guess, couple of miles, that 20 miles per hour is something like that. I'm just as a reminder. I don't know if that is a part of.
Yeah, and I think we'll have to figure out how, if that goes into therefore, if we can talk about, or if there's, like, I know when the Lower Manhattan Regional went through, that was our biggest question, is that, and DOT at that point didn't have an answer, like, how are you signing this, like, and so it's like, you know, those signs have gone up, like, as you enter, it just says 20 mile per hour, and I'm sure they have some more signs through the area. But yeah, when it's an ad hoc, and actually we do have some approval, DOT has sent, just noticed that they're lowering speed limits around the schools in the district to 15 miles per hour, which is fantastic. We obviously support that in a holistic approach. But again, it's that ad hoc kind of approach to the speed limit. It's not consistent citywide, so as a driver, you really don't know. Well,
That's why I thought that if the mile per hour, and the little box light, if it can be lit at each light, again, that's the driver en route, in transit, wherever they're going. So the mile per hour is gonna constantly remind each driver as they're driving down the road, listen, it's a 20 mile per hour zone. It's already there, listed at the light. It's not off to the side where the driver has to look around. It's right there in front of them. So each time that they're passing through a traffic light, that traffic light is reminding each driver we're in 20 mile per hour zone each time they pass through. I just thought that would be.
no, that's a great suggestion.
And I agree 100%, and I thought you could put signage under therefore be it resolved, but my question is, are we able to say, and we require signage? Because where would we get the funds?
Well, This is, I mean, again, our community board is just advisory in nature anyway, so what we're doing is we're just showing that, that we're supporting this initiative, and then, you know, DOT to actually, and the mayor's obviously implement it. If there is some reason that, we can ask the next budget go around, that does DOT need more funding for signage for speed limit signs or anything like that, and need to advocate for, but at this point, I would assume DOT is gonna sit in signage.
That's the kind of thing when we go over a timeline and we're collecting questions in advance to ask for the asking agency. That's something you might want to put on.
Yeah, and I think it's something I like next time around in the fall, we gotta do that, it's just something I would want to talk about. And then at that point, maybe we'll be in a regional slow zone.
Coming up really soon.
It's gonna be very, I know, right?
So I'm going back.
Okay, so we added in 3 additional whereas, so I'm gonna read the first, therefore be resolved, that Manhattan Community Board 3 calls on the New York City Department of Transportation to exercise its authority under Sandy's law and lower the speed limit on all applicable streets in Manhattan Community District 3 to 20 miles per hour and 15 miles per hour on all streets adjacent to schools in the district. And further be resolved that Community Board 3 requests that New York City DOT returns to present plans and provide support for the implementation of the 20-hour speed limit in Community Board 3.
Including signage.
Including such,
But no,
actually,
we're not asking for signage.
but this one actually that one actually confuses me just a little bit, because the implementation is like, we want the whole community board, we don't want it ad hoc. Like, it's like I'm just trying to think of the language.
Then change it. I'm gonna be honest, I wrote that because when it was sent to us, it asked for something different that I didn't think was something, our usual formatting.
Yeah.
So it was done,
I like it as saying a progress report, but maybe it's just,
so just change the wording.
yeah,
But did we actually ask for signage?
Well, that's the question is.
But that's in June, when we go over the timeline, you'll see when we put in questions for the agency.
Oh, so
We'll talk about that at the next agenda.
I think the question is, and I was wondering if we wanna in here, is put it out in that there's, proper consistent signage throughout the district. I mean, there's something like that, but is that something that DOT Art,
Yes, that's good.
do you have a standard already that we would wanna see what that standard is and then come back to you, that we want more than what your standard is or something like that?
Yeah, so I would have to check what our standards are for the implementation of Sammy's law, and the regional slow zone. We primarily installed new speed limit signage around entry points. People coming downtown or entering Manhattan. So I'd have to check where, in the regional slow zone, they're kind of dispersed. For the neighborhood slow zone in the East Village, that was an older initiative that I think was done maybe in 2014 or 2013. So if the request is for improved signage in that area, I can go back and see if we can better delineate that, to make it clear that that's the expectation for those blocks.
So I think clearly we want consistent signage, but I'm gonna say also from knowing the shortage of staff and everything else that's going on. I think it's much easier to implement the change and to implement Sandy's law. I think if we're gonna start asking DOT at the same time, I think it's not gonna happen and it's gonna get confusing. I mean, it's just, it takes so much effort to get things done.
I kind of agree with you on that, and I almost feel that let's just see how this rolls out in the next few months to kind of see are we actually gonna implement this?
Okay.
And if not, then I think we're gonna go back,
So-
all right, at least for maybe the C and D, let's get signage replaced there, let's make it what we already have, improve
I'm
that.
thinking the way it's just focus on getting this done and then focus on the signage.
Yeah,
And not because
I'm okay
it
with,
should all be done at once. I'm just talking reality.
I agree, yeah, I don't know, what do y'all feel about on here, keeping this down straight, simple to the point that we just support it, and then really implementation, think about if that's a budget issue and a request, or, we can do another resolution too.
Yes, we can do another one, or we can do it as a budget priority.
Yeah. Tony, sorry.
In terms of the budget, cause I'm trying to wrap my mind around what we're talking in terms of the signage and costs. Are you talking about to build, what it would cost to build something? Because I was thinking more or less in terms of utilizing materials that are light reflective or solar powered, so that it's not generating more costs in terms of electricity, that it's more conservative because of the type of material that would be used, and of course, something that's gonna cost enormous amounts of money, a lot of energy to charge and to fuel. But if it's solar powered,
No,
generated.
I think actually we're
This
just,
is a funding issue.
it's a fun,
Oh,
I think, and I think what we're trying to do here is that this is like pretty straightforward little revolutionary, like say, we support it. But to your point is like, I think where it comes back to like when it gets implemented, let's just say that we're gonna get support here. That if there are other things that we think as a community board that we can improve the actual, people understanding that there is a different speed limit in the same area, that, you know, we could ask them to, you know, come back to us with some ideas and that type of thing.
If I could just interject with that, so New York City DOT has not officially expanded the implementation of regional slow zones in Manhattan. So that's not necessarily a budget issue, that's more of,
No, just a sign.
that's a policy, I understand that, but I just like wanna be clear that in terms of what you're asking us for, so if you're asking for an expanded regional slow zone, that's not necessarily a budget ask. But in terms of signage, like we have the operational and expense budget to install signage, that's not necessarily the issue. I mean, I think from, you know, the CB3 perspective in terms of getting things installed, the issue is the timing and the turnaround of having our staff evaluate and make sure, you know, what's going in is what's needed. But other, like, we have funds to install speed limit signage. It's a matter of whether or not it meets our standards for what's on the road, because New York City DOT also has in the past removed signs from the street in order to try to streamline what drivers are seeing, so they're less distracted. So you're not going to see a street with like 3 or 4 different signs at an intersection. So those are the considerations we have.
So again, if we put this on the budget consoles, all those questions will be answered. You know, whether it's a funding issue, they will answer, well, we can do it, but it wouldn't be consistent. They will give all that information.
We will try to answer your questions.
No, I mean, that's easy. They would do that. I mean, that's easy information. You know, if they're saying we don't put these on because they're considered distracting, that they would say that. So
We're gonna move to Kevin, who's patiently holding his hand.
I didn't see the raise hand button, so I was like, I can just physically do it. To my
Analog works.
That's it. To my knowledge, the signage because all of Manhattan CB1 is now a 20-mile-per-hour slow zone, right? It's the only full community board that has the treatment. And the Department of Transportation just went ahead and replaced those signs. There was no additional, to my knowledge, anything beyond the existing. There was no kind of specialty budget, move. It was just kind of the regular sign shop replacement of those posted speed limits. In CB3, just looking at a map right now, there are posted 25-mile-per-hour speed limits on 14th Street, on Houston Street. Hold on, sorry. On the Bowery. I have a map here. There's
answer to Sammy's law.
Yeah. No,
First Ave and Second Ave also have posted 25-mile-per-hour speed limits. So that's just there's a Vision Zero view, which is an online map which shows where 25-mile-per-hour speed limits are posted. It doesn't show for anything else, but I just wanted to flag that for the committee.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
I was gonna call a question about. Can't move on.
Yeah,
I think we're good.
I think we're good. The last further be resolved confused me, but does anybody else have any other ways you want to word it? I think it is that we want them to come back. That's fine. Okay, let's take a vote. We'll just do it all by hand. That's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Tanya, so, Keenan is for 6. Great.
Thanks.
All right, Kevin, thank you. We will be bringing this to the full board, at the end of the month here. It's the last Tuesday of the month.
Great. Would you like me to come? Do you need me to come back, or would you like me to come back for that? Or
No, you don't need to, just to know that it is in hybrid, so, but we post it online, so you'll find out what happens and. let you know.
Great.
Yeah, minutes will be posted the next day.
Yeah.
thank you, everyone.
I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin, appreciate it. Have a great night.
If you have any questions, shoot an email. Happy to any other board members or whatever have any questions. Happy to answer.
You got it. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so our next one is the preliminary budget, that we received. And, so I'm gonna have Nancy pull that up here. And, I forgot to remind you, I had way too much stuff at work today. I wasn't prepared at all. But I had printed this out and I should have it over with me. If you just scroll down, it's up, doesn't start so like. Just, yeah, it's the same.
First one's on page 65. There's
Okay.
only one,
Oh, and DEP.
oh,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
had DEP and sanitation, that was our.
1, 2, I think I have four items that I
Okay.
noted.
And this is the one that the DEP was a small program currently in the way using roadside sound meters and cameras. Expand initiative, for, sorry, I should move this out. Cameras to capture evidence of vehicles that violate New York State's vehicle and traffic law and the city's noise codes, effectively expand initiative citywide. Additional funding must be secured not only for equipment, but also for the staffing necessary to review violations, manage enforcement and maintain the system. Sustained investment in this program will help reduce excessive vehicle noise, improve quality of life for residents, and strengthen the city's ability to enforce existing noise regulations. So we've been asking this for a while. What they've asked, this agency does not support and cannot accommodate.
Well, they also said, please contact us.
Yeah.
So I think they should contact us.
So we're gonna contact it, yeah. And just for new folks to the committee, like this is, so we're like, we last fall, we kind of went through a whole budget of what we felt was priorities. We asked questions to the agencies, they kind of provided it. And then we had the committee voted on like what our top priorities were for budget requests for it. So this is like the preliminary budget, agencies saw what we requested and then their response.
And I could just put a little bit more context, so. The mayor's preliminary budget just came out, and in their preliminary budget, they look at our priorities and give answers. And that's what Vinnie just read, does not support and cannot accommodate. This is all on our website under member resources under budget. The minute we get the stuff, we post it as well as it's on the OMB website. By March 25th, we need to write a letter of comment about the preliminary budget, in which we take a few highlighted things. I honestly don't think anything from this committee would be one of the things that you would highlight. Some good news is one of our board members works for sanitation and said the mayor is fast tracking containerization, which this committee always supported. They did say our community is gonna be the most difficult because of our small streets and many roadbed cafes. No one knows how that's gonna work yet with the containerization, so we'll see. But I think we should, just go through the answers but I don't think any of them are like critical things. Particularly considering the state of the budget.
Yeah, and. Right, I think the next one was provide more frequent litter basket collection. Agency supports but cannot accommodate. I mean, when I was looking through it, a lot of it's like that has to do with just provide more on street trash cans and recycling containers. That one, I think that one is like such a key that we really don't have enough trash cans on the corners in our district. But
It says they support it, they just can't, they don't have funding.
yeah, so it is. Precision cleaning initiative targets chronic sanitation issues such as illegal dumping. in sports back cannot, accommodate, so that's like on the Williamsburg Bridge and other things, and then.
Well, real quick, on all these, like, agency support but cannot accommodate. Why is it important for us to continue to do the advocacy for this stuff? Like, if we know that this is the answer they're gonna give us.
Because things change.
Yeah.
Things change from year to year.
And if they're not hearing it from us, then they're like, it's not.
Sometimes it takes years to get things done. And if they're saying, particularly if they're saying they're supported, and then it's, they need to keep hearing it from us.
So it's not like a wasted exercise. I'm just saying for the newer committee members. If you're thinking,
Um,
why are you doing this? And this,
So-
we turn,
To some extent, and I think putting them on the budget is absolutely necessary. Does our letter of comment mean anything? I don't believe that our letter of comment's gonna change anything, but I think if we don't do it, we're saying we don't care.
And I have to say, like, our asks have been better this year because last year it was kind of like, we don't understand or something like that, or, I mean, a lot of it has been like, we support.
And some of the reason for that is because city planning has also been educating the agencies and how to answer. We do have actually from other committees, we have a number of things that says this task has been completed, like we asked for either increased funding or increased programs and generally around homelessness and that kind of thing. And the answer, which I am answering in the letter of comment, is this task is not completed. Done.
Do our council members get this from us? Like, do they review it?
We generally, they should. Sometimes we meet with them once a year to go through it. For some committees, we like parks, we always meet with both of the council members. I don't know if we have stuff from this committee to do that.
I know that the composting one where last year, the composting of our partners was actually funded by city council, like they did the one.
So that isn't this budget, that's city council discretion
That's city-
funds, which
right.
is a totally different thing.
But I'm just saying that like we support, we obviously want the mayor to keep that, but like if they're gonna do it, like knowing that we're supporting that, I guess.
You can write a letter or resolution to the council member advocating for council discretionary funds. Harvey particularly, I know, is very supportive of all those issues.
Yeah. All right, do you have any questions here? Okay. The next one is we've got is planning for term limits, and I forwarded this one out to y'all, we had a chance to look at it, it's the annual timelines. And so this is the initiative for the board chair, Adriana, Andrea, that she would, kind of. With the term limits of community members and board members, turning the next 2 years or so. You can go, please.
No.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
thanks for coming out. Really appreciate it. Sorry, I should have.
Oh, no, it's fine. I know when to take my leave.
Yeah, no, that's good. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Thanks, Emily. So this is the annual time frame. So it kind of more or less is like agenda items, things that we typically do throughout the year that changes. It's pretty much static every year.
Here's paper for anyone that can't read that.
And it's because like a third of our board is transitioning because of term rates. Next year, right?
A lot of next year, this year, we're gonna get 6 new members. And then, next year, we're losing a lot of people, so we have a year basically to do all this. By the end of like 2 months, I think, we'll get a list from the borough president of actually who's going to be terminated next year. So that'll be helpful for, particularly for them committee chairs and maybe terminated.
And the goal of this calendar is basically because a lot of this knowledge on timelines lived in chairs or senior members of the committee board's heads. And we want to get it on paper so that newer members know, okay, it's May, this is what we should be focusing on, it's August, this is what, this meeting's not happening. Just so we can have some of that continuity of knowledge, right?
And any other documents you think, I can't think of for this committee, but some committees do, like land use is making. Documents about land use actions, what comes to us, what do you do? So if there's other things you can think of that should be documented, the more the better.
Yeah, I mean, like there's, so we've got this one, there was like, I've seen one, I think the Health and Human Services, like they have like how agenda items are added. It's something that I think that we've had a little bit of a problem of like, what agendas do we, what items do we want to add, and like, what are we advocating for versus waiting for them to come to us, so there's a little bit of that. But for us to like, put that on here, I mean, we have talked in the past of like, is it every 2 months that we have an agenda item just to talk amongst ourselves of what's going on and what we have interest in. Right now we do have some pretty large things that'll come to the committee. Town Connections with the whole redesign of Chatham Square, that's gonna be coming here. Now Street is something that's big, that'll be coming, taking a lot of time.
Killing Square
Killing Square for Chinatown.
and more, there's more stuff coming, there's gonna protected bikelands on St. Mark's. A small section that's not done, but I will say Human Services is very different than this committee.
Yeah,
As Human Services doesn't get items assigned from the city. It's more policy, it's not related to CB3, it's more policy in communities like CB3. So they actually create their agenda items. You don't have time to create, it's like, I have conversations with Kate, like, no, you can't put that on April because we're already doing this. So, I mean, that's actually, they come to us by how full our agenda items, like, Kinlaw Square is coming in May. Although they wanted to come to us in April, but I said, no, we have open streets in April. So it's a little bit different here.
Yeah, it's a little different, right, and I hope that you all know that you just can email me, text me, whatever, if you have an idea of an agenda, and we kind of get that rolling, which is kind of like how the families for Safe Streets came as well, so. Yeah, maybe this is the only really document that we kind of.
It might be, I can't. think of it.
That can't be right, I wanted to make work for myself and for us, but I couldn't figure it out.
You wanna go through this one?
Sure. January, we celebrate the new year, nothing, that's just a normal kind of month through March. April, which is gonna be next month, this is fairly new, as of last year. Open street applications are received by DOT, and then we hold a committee meeting to review those as an agenda item. Budget priorities, district needs, committee reviews timeline, so this is for next month, we'll have that on there again.
We do, we're gonna do budget priorities in April. No?
No, is that in March? Yeah,
Well, so ordinarily, this is what, and it's not on any of the. Ordinarily, the preliminary budget comes out in January and we comment in February. It was pushed back because it's a new administration, so maybe you want to add in February, comment on preliminary budget.
Okay.
And then I would take it off April.
So February, we'll see a comment on preliminary budget.
Yeah, then take budget stuff off April, I was,
Yeah.
but anything other than open streets.
Yeah, I agree. May. District needs first review for changes from last year. Did we really start that in May?
We do, we put it on, what we do is ask people to read it, come to the committee with, this is what needs to be changed, this is what needs to be updated. Not with the actual substance, but please
Yeah,
go
it's kind of
through
like
it.
the first.
Please go
stage
through
of
it, what are we missing that is, we need this year.
So in June, we've got district needs again, continue discussing, review for changes, updates, budget priorities, give questions to district manager for budget meeting agendas. So yeah,
That's what you were talking about, so. In September. The district managers and committee chairs meet together, all of Manhattan together. meet with the agencies. We have 3 days where we meet like an hour and a half with each agency. And to prepare for those meetings, we create the questions. So we ask about programs, what is the funding for programs we're interested in? Is funding in danger? Are you well funded? Is this program, still existing? That kind of thing. So one of the things we could, if we have issues with signage, we can have budget questions that they're essentially budget questions because money is involved, but you can also ask questions. Can we have this kind of sign that, is lit and goes, which is gonna cost more money, I'm sorry. But you can say that are all the signs have to be consistent? And is this a funding issue? And we're gotten very well versed in how to frame things in budget questions. So it's really important in June, things you're interested in finding out about, to give me those questions. What happens is that district managers combine all their questions, like we have one person in charge of transportation, one in DP, and they combine all the questions and then submit them to the agencies by borough.
I have a question. And it's, is it okay?
As the chair.
Yes. I noticed that most of the needs within CV3 primarily encompass the community that is above Canal Street. And I'm not hearing other than the reconstruction of Canal Street, I'm not really hearing anything about issues below Canal Street. And I know that there are concerns, especially when it comes to the construction on the streets. There's a lot of loss of parking with individuals who actually live in that area. I know there are other concerns, but I don't hear that part of the community's voice, and I know that they have concerns, and I would like to know why that is. Are we, is there a conversation being had with that part of the community? Because that's what I. So of course, I'm concerned about things that are immediately impacting myself, my family, my community, the local store owners. I'm concerned about that. And I'm not hearing a lot of voice from that area, and I'm just curious.
This construction on our agenda is not about the fact that there is construction. Like for the borough-based jail, there is construction and people do complain about taking parking spaces and things. This construction we're talking about is a redesign that the community has asked for safety purposes. It's not just that they're doing the work, it's what is that work gonna be and how's it gonna make it safer? So if people have construction issues, like something's impacting you, that is a service delivery issue that the office can take care of. And we have had with the borough-based jail, we have dealt with some of the issues that particularly impacted, like the restaurants across the street. We work with the agencies and the businesses.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair to say that the committee is like, we take up more like policies. Where Susan was in office, that it takes, where things are not working well out in there. I think that's where Susan's the office of the community board, that's where they get involved.
Okay. I'm learning.
Yeah, no, I think those are all really big questions. It's kind of like just, for here, I guess, a full board, people come and speak to that, to talk about what's going on in the community and those types of things. As much as like 311, if like it gets to, like, that is where Susan can help when there's a 311 complaint about like. Again, construction and parking, I'm not exactly sure of the situation there, but it might just be that it's part of the escrow project, I'm assuming down in that area, EDC or whatnot.
We're required by city charter to have an interagency meeting once a month to talk about particularly systemic complaints, and particularly things that involve one agency. So when the office, and I'm gonna give an update based on all of my meeting today. So when the office gets those complaints, we work with the agencies.
And you get the 311?
No, we don't get 311s. We usually tell people when they have a complaint, we'll say, please call 311 first. And then give us a service number and we'll follow up. If it's an easy 311 thing, like say you call about a traffic light now, they're gonna fix that immediately. And it's 311 gets it on the record. When it's on the record, it affects funding. That's why we always want people, they say, well, no one came, doesn't matter, it affects funding. But no, then we can look up the 311s, but we don't do that. If you have a problem, you want us to work on, send us an email.
How do we track all the prior resolutions and then follow up with DOT? Because between Michelle and Benny, I think you guys remember all the rest.
We're looking into putting that on Airtable. We thought we had help doing it, to guide us, but we haven't, and it's been a question, to be honest, of time.
There's like so much, we were actually talking about this, like exactly, there's so much in the future with like AI and all this kind of stuff, like searching and all those types of things. There's like this.
And we're in a third version of the city website. The first version was very easy to search, and every version gets worse because it's made to be, on phones and that kind of stuff, and it's not made really for the kind of work that we want to use it for. So it's become very difficult to search that kind of stuff.
Okay, so keep going here. So July district needs statement, review, draft and finalize. August is no meeting. September district needs statement, review, final draft of district needs statement. So this is something that like last year we actually spent for for that. We spent a lot of time reworking all of our district needs statements. And it was because they were a little outdated. We kind of like did a lot of drafting. Susan helped a lot there. There are some sections that I know this year I wanted to spend more time with and forgetting which one I want to solve them, the ones I document again. Of kind of reworking, but that would be great for whoever is like really interested in this stuff and they want to like ask us questions. It's kind of like getting succinct. Like we've got really our district needs before last year before we like kind of like cleaned it up. There's a little bit all over the place. It's kind of like we brought it really down and we deleted a lot of stuff, which was actually very difficult to do, but it actually made it read much clearer of what we really were asking for and what we thought was needed. So we'll go ahead and review that again in July, September. Then October, we discussed and prioritized the budget priorities. So that's kind of what we just went over a little bit. What those were our priorities that we put forth to the agencies. We voted on the district needs statement and the budget priorities.
So I want to suggest that if there are sections, if you could look at it now that you want research, and we do have money to do that,
Okay.
that's something that we should do right now.
So why don't I'll do that with you all as I'll circulate what we had last year. And you all can take a look too as well and see if there's anything you're interested in, because that is a big.
Let's do it like, give it 2 weeks.
Yeah, so actually maybe put that on, what are we in, we're in March, so maybe review last year's district needs for
I don't know, we don't usually have money, it's because we're short staffed, I wouldn't put that on.
you don't want to put on.
No, it's last year and this year we're short staffed, ordinarily we have money for that. I just want to take advantage of what you do have.
Got it, understood.
But because it's very time sensitive, I would say we should come up with something or at least get the ideas in 2 weeks and then figure out what we can do.
Okay. All right, so this, we don't have to take a, I'll make that correction from April and February. I'll give that back.
Send it to me, then we'll post it on the website.
You know,
So,
okay, but-
under member resources, I think Vince said this, we now have folders for every committee. And as we do create documents, we're posting them there. That doesn't mean they're written in stone, they're just works in progress. But we want to capture it.
Okay, so with that,
Can I give it an update?
oh, yes, sorry.
So I had a really heavy district service cabinet meeting today. For 2 years, as some of you know, I've been working on the 11th Street issue with all the bikes. I will say to the world, the last administration was not very helpful. And they were not only not very helpful, they really impeded us in many ways, like at one point, if people would complain to the New York Post, City Hall would make policy based on post stories, and they confiscated bikes once. It was so difficult to get them back, and actually Brent Lander's office had to help us with the police commissioner to find out how we get them back. And then the community, a lot of people in the community was really wonderful and helped us. But it's been very difficult. Some people that live on the block, particularly, I'll just leave it. Some people complain a lot, like daily, to me and to Harvey and to some other people. Other people who you don't hear from very often, but when something happens, they're incredibly supportive. The issue is for the new people. These are men who do not have, don't have documentation, and they're working for food delivery app companies. The city has no infrastructure plans, whatever, for where these bikes go that they generally rent. Where do they put them when they're not in the act of delivery? And so they particularly are on 11th Street. One of the reasons they're there is because there's a mosque on the corner. Most all of these men are West African men. And so they're also, when they spread out the bikes that people have suggested, they get stolen. So they have to keep them together, and they have to be on the street to make sure they're there. So it's been developed a community. And on one hand, we don't want to endanger these men in any way. On the other hand, we have Department of Health there now because we have increased rats. There, people sit on the sidewalk and eat because there's no place else to be. There's no place for the bikes. It's a mess. We've got some extra bike corrals put in. It takes a year and a half to do that. We worked with, what's the name of the group?
LDU, Los Angeles.
Yeah, we worked with them, and they actually came in and talked to the men. They've also been there with us during some of the cleanups. They've been wonderful. But we couldn't get anything productive done. It's just the same damn cleanup and answer these emails. So we don't have anyone assigned yet to help us from the mayor's office, which is going to be Office of Mass Engagement. But I begged a lot. And I got 3 people from the mayor's office there today. And we had Department of Health, we had Department of Transportation, we had the police, we had the fire department, because people are now complaining that the batteries aren't safe, which is totally not true, as defined by the fire department. We had sanitation there. And we had everybody talking about, we have all these horrible problems, but there is no solution. We need to have a solution. And they were very interested. I just found out they actually followed up with DOT after the meeting, which is just 4 o'clock. So this is the first time I felt that anyone is interested in doing anything. So I just wanted to report that.
That's great, okay. This has been going on for over
Oh
a year.
my God.
Oh, like,
It took me a month of solid work just to get people at this damn meeting.
yeah, that's great. That's wonderful.
So,
And I saw the council member at the last week's hearing for Transpo, he spoke about the corral issue and the
he's been,
1.5 year wait and.
we email daily.
Yeah, and really putting pressure on the DOT to expedite that process.
So just so you know, I told you, I was in the hospital waiting for my eye surgery, listening to the thing and emailing Clinton Harvey.
Yeah, that's great. Good.
And I will say Harvey's actually not on this issue. He has called several meetings with DOT on issues just about, being able. As they say they don't have staff, they don't have funding, that kind of stuff, but it's basically about doing your job.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it. All right, thank you. We'll do the roll call
Vincent Cerruto,
here.
here, time and dates. Here, Lee Berman, absent, and Stewart, absent, John Garcia.
Here, ready to go. Ready for the formal matter.
Olson, absent, Chuck Cooper's. Yes, present. Judge Eliao, absent, Elaine Red. Here. David Crane, absent. Neil Fernandez, absent.